Let's be real here, with Kennywood as my home park, it's a real disappointment having their star attraction closed for the entire season. The park says this will be better in the long run as they improve the overall reliability of the attraction. Steel Curtain, when it was announced back in 2018, was supposed to be the game-changing roller coaster for Kennywood, a massive hypercoaster with 9 inversions, breaking multiple records. This was the big new addition Kennywood fans were clamoring for. Well, after a few weeks of operation, the problems started to bubble up to the surface. Problems after problems, Steel Curtain would close down for days, weeks, or even months, only then to open back up with the pretense that things would be better, but then followed once again by a breakdown. This drama has been going on for 5 years now, and the general public is starting to get impatient. With the absence of Steel Curtain, I really started to notice it during my last visit to the park. Sure, they still have other great coasters and thrill rides. The Bites and Pints event is also a plus, and their new water jet ski circus show, these activities help to block the giant lawn ornament towering over the entire park. But after walking around for a while, I started to miss having another coaster in their lineup. Kennywood usually goes about 9 years in between the roller coaster editions, but I think depending on which direction Steel Curtain takes, this timeline might need to be sped up. In this video, I'm going to talk about which type of roller coaster I think Kennywood should build next. But first, please do me a favor and click on that like button. Newcomers to my channel, be sure to subscribe for future roller coaster content. When looking over the factors on what their next roller coaster needs, the most important one has to be reliability. Kennywood cannot survive with another Lemon, so I would highly recommend going with a reliable manufacturer, one that is known for building some of the most reliable, dependable roller coasters in the market. I'm of course talking about Bolliger and Mabillard, or just B&M for short. They might be a little more pricey, but their product is worth the investment. My whole list is going to be sticking with this manufacturer because I really believe they are the best fit for their next roller coaster project. Next step is, what model do we go with? Well, looking over the park lineup, we can see a few gaps, but let's eliminate the most obvious first. The Hypercoaster model is one of my favorites, but since this park has Phantom's Revenge, it seems like rendition. Also, this coaster model can be found at multiple other theme parks in the area from Kings Island, Hershey Park, and Six Flags Great Adventure. The same could also be said about their looping roller coasters like the floorless model. Kennywood may not have a floorless coaster, but since these models focus on inversions, well, Steel Curtain is going to rule that one out. Continuing down their catalog, the inverted coaster is one of their most popular, being around since the early 90s and continues to be a hit with thrill seekers and theme parks alike. Normally, I would say that since many parks in the area have a B&M invert, this should be a pass for Kennywood. Well, the rule for inverted roller coasters isn't exactly cut and dry. Having an inverted roller coaster is kind of par for your coaster collection. Almost every park has one, so even if the park down the street has one, you can as well. Kind of like building more wooden roller coasters, there's no unwritten rule to how many you can have at your park. With that said though, I'm not entirely convinced this is the right model for Kennywood. The hilly terrain would be nice for a cool inverted coaster, but I feel like this park is looking for something a little more unique. The dive coaster is also yet another popular model, and thankfully, there aren't too many in this area, but also at the same time, enough to make this feel repetitive. Both Cedar Point and Dorney Park have a dive coaster. Busch Gardens Williamsburg also has Griffin, but that park is around 6 hours away. Similar to the inverted coaster, I feel like these models are rare enough that Kennywood could get away with it, and once again, their terrain would make for a sick layout. Could you imagine having another roller coaster diving down into the valley? But as I already said, Kennywood is looking for something that would feel more original, so I'm ruling this model out as well. The wing coaster, well, Cedar Point has Gatekeeper, and this model typically focuses on inversions, something Kennywood doesn't need more of. The next closest wing coaster would be Holiday World, and if all the rumors point to be true, soon to be King's Dominion. I think a cool launching wing coaster would be fun, but again, not convinced this is the model for Kennywood. Alright, there are 4 models remaining to talk about, all I think have a higher chance of being selected. First up is the Flying Coaster. This model is quite rare. The closest flying coaster would be Superman Ultimate Flight over at Six Flags Great Adventure, and then from there, you have to travel a good 10 hours to find the next flying coaster. Sure, these models do put more emphasis on inversions, but this would be something different. Having a coaster flying over the midways at Kennywood would really stand out amongst the pack. The biggest downside would be the reliability. Not to say that these models are unreliable, but they seem to have more issues than some of their other models. The family inverted coaster is always a decent pick for a smaller amusement park. Kennywood has quite a lot of family attractions, and building another ride that blurs the line between family and thrill would be an excellent stepping stone for upcoming thrill seekers. If you ask me, I feel like the family inverted coaster has a higher chance of being built over the traditional model, even though I would much rather have a more intense inverted coaster. The biggest thing going for this type of coaster, well, only one park in the States has this coaster model and it's yet to even open. Kind of hard to give this a green light until you see it in action, but again, Kennywood really likes their prototype models. Tagging along with our last pick is the Family Launch Coaster. I don't have much to say other than we haven't seen this one in action yet, besides testing at SeaWorld Orlando. This is a new model, so it has that going for it, but still I don't think this is the originality Kennywood is looking for. The final coaster type to discuss, the stand-up coaster, or more precise, the surf coaster model. B&M reinvented their stand-up model into the surf coaster. It's very much the same concept of a stand-up coaster, except the seats will bob up and down with the ride and/or rider, providing a much more comfortable riding experience. The stand-up coasters are notorious for being uncomfortable, rough, or even too intense. You have to know how to ride them correctly, but the surf coaster essentially eradicated all those problems. This ride is very exciting and can focus on more elements instead of inversions. Pipeline at SeaWorld Orlando is the only surf coaster in operation. The ride only features one inversion, with most of the elements revolving around airtime. The ride also features a launch, but I'm sure B&M could construct one with a traditional lift as well. Could you imagine a surf coaster diving up and down the valley? This would be a ride that would grab your attention. Having a second launch coaster wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. Also, the closest stand-up coaster is Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure. However, there's still enough new elements on the surf coaster to differentiate it from a traditional stand-up coaster. If you ask me, this would be the perfect model for Kennywood. I know it sounds unusual, but that's kind of what makes it the perfect ride for Kennywood. It's fresh, unique, and I'm sure you could change up the theming so it's not surfing, maybe snowboarding or extreme sports like skateboarding. Bottom line, if I had to pick a new B&M coaster for Kennywood, this is it. Honestly, I really hope more parks start to build this model because I became an instant fan with Pipeline after one ride. The way you can kick your legs out during airtime moments is unlike anything else I've experienced. Well, until next time, this is Extreme Thrills.